POW in Stalag 4B from December 1944 to April of 45, captured in the Battle of the Bulge, the Good Conduct Medal, the World War II Victory Medal, the Combat Infantry Badge, European Theater Medal with 3 bronze stars. And as we stand for our Pledge of Allegiance and invocation, I would ask that we would have a moment of silence for Mr. Cato before we get started. And our pledge and invocation will be given by Council Member Alan Blackman tonight.
Let's stand. We'll do the moment of silence after the pledge. Let's do the pledge first. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's bow our heads for a moment of silence and remember Mr. Cato. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight praising you for all the great and marvelous things that you have provided to us. Lord, we just thank you for the life of Mr. Cato, what he meant for our country and the freedom that we enjoy today. And like him comes the greatest generation that we ever replaced. Lord, we want to ask you to give us wisdom tonight to do those things for the county that mean so much to our citizens. Lord, we ask that you be with us, be with the world, be with the country, be with the state, be with the county, as we try to lift this COVID virus. Lord, it's been such a disruption, and it certainly is a test of our mettle, and we will overcome it, and we know it will be with your guidance and your wisdom. Lord, we ask that you be with us tonight, and we ask that you forgive us of our sins. In your name, amen.
Amen. Let's move to our approval of our agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Carnes. Do I have a second? Second from Ms. McGriff.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I move to amend the agenda to remove items 8G, ordinance 2020-1680 regarding rezoning property of Mark and James Haldeman. As I understand, the applicant wishes to withdraw his zoning application and reapply for zoning and modified application. I also move to remove all of the economic development matters from the executive session. And I move item 9D first on the after the consent agenda.
All right, so you're asking that to move to
9D to move
to the top of the agenda on 8. Okay.
A non-consent, correct. And also move to remove item 7C, ordinance 2020-1675 from the consent agenda and move it to the new non-consent agenda, which will become item 8M. The ordinance needs a motion to amend.
All right, do I have a second on that amendment?
Second.
Second from Ms. McGriff. Any discussion?
That's terrible.
We want to go on and vote on this.
That sound like Charlene?
Let's go ahead and vote on this amendment first. I have an amendment from Mr. Mostel. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Go ahead, Mr. Graham.
I had just seconded the motion, that's all.
Oh, okay. I thought Ms. McGriff did. I'm sorry. Anything else? Any more? That takes care of everything then. Okay, we're ready to vote on our agenda as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. We have item number 5, a special presentation, recognition of Lancaster County as a fire-safe community from Darren Player, Director of Lancaster County Fire Rescue Emergency Management. Mr. Player.
Mr. Chairman, Darren is in quarantine. He was at the beach this weekend, and so he's back and he's home in quarantine. But would note that Lancaster County has been designated as a fire-safe community by the state of South Carolina. Certainly something that benefits all our citizens, and great effort by all of our fire rescue departments. And very appreciative of all the hard work that the volunteers and the career staff have put in.
All right, thank you. We now come down to our citizens' comments. Please bear in mind this is not a period of dialogue with council or a question and answer period. This is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. Ask that you address your remarks to council as a body and not to any individual council member. Please speak into the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to address council. Your time will not start until you have provided your name and address. Mr. Willis.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to read into the record a brief summary. I would note for the record that council members have the full comments from the following citizens, 24, with a wide variety of opinions. So I'll just take them down in order. First one was against a mask ordinance, says it goes against state law. That's incorrect, but that's what they said. But feels government should not act on this matter. And that was from Aaron Moon Kelly, no address given. Feels that face mask ordinances are unconstitutional. Grace Ashley, East Springs. Noted that polls show most citizens support wearing masks, agrees with Councilman Carnes that the governor needs to act. Suzanne Pinuel from Lancaster. Feels that OSHA requirements should be followed before wearing masks. Ruth Blair, Lancaster. Against businesses having to enforce a mask ordinance. Marty Haynes, Lancaster. Against a mask ordinance infringes on the liberty of citizens. Dan Safer, Indian Land. Says that masks and even medical masks are ineffective in preventing transmission of disease. Amber Cannon, RN, no address given. Feels the decision on wearing masks is a matter of individual liberty. Casey Coley of Lancaster. Says masks can make you sick and it is unconstitutional. Allison Wright, East Springs. Says masks are ineffective and against personal rights. Krista Larimore, Lancaster. Says masks are ineffective and the sick should be quarantined. Jana, but no last name was given. So all I got is first name on that one. Says masks are ineffective and against personal rights. Kylie Allen, Lancaster. Says people can take care of themselves and if not happy, they can leave. Reverend Huey Mills, Lancaster. In favor of a mask ordinance to slow the spread of the virus. Linda Williams, no address given. Feels masks don't work and is worried about a child's face being covered if abducted. Ashley Knight, East Springs. Opposes mask ordinance and would not obey it. Erica Coy, no address given. Feels cloth masks are ineffective and could cause panic attacks for wearers. Courtney Garrison, Lancaster. Feels that masks are ineffective and that the virus is here to stay, so we need to learn to live with it. Amanda Banholzer, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, no address given. Opposes mask ordinance and will not shop at any store that requires them or a restaurant that requires them. Paula Blackman, no address given. And I guess this is a point I need to just note for the record. There are a number of locations right now that are mandated to have masks, and that's by actions of others. Restaurants and public gatherings by action of the governor, schools and school buses by action of the school superintendent, and state buildings by order of the governor, and court facilities by order of the Chief Justice. But just would note that. Poses a mask ordinance. Paul Banholzer, no address given. Opposes mask ordinance and will not shop in any store, restaurant. I think I've already covered that one. Paula Blackman, no address given. opposes kids wearing masks in schools as it will cause breathing problems. Tanya Munn, Kershaw. Requesting that the wearing of masks be optional. Mary Atkinson, no address given. Will not shop in businesses that require masks. Joseph Coy, East Springs. And does not feel that children should have to wear a mask. Brandon Coker of Lancaster. And those were all of the ones that were submitted electronically, and just wanted to make sure we had those summarized real briefly and into the record.
All right, thank you, Mr. Willis. We have some people that want to speak tonight, and I think all of them want to speak on the mask. You'll have 3 minutes. Sheila Hanson.
Thank you, sir. And thank the council for having things that we can come and speak as citizens. And I'm Sheila Henson. I'm at 263 Asgill Lane in Kershaw. And I do appreciate all of you because I know how this feels. I am against the mask. I've got one on, but that's because y'all making me. But I am against the mask. I think people should have a choice. I think we need to get back to our schools starting up. I think we need to get back to businesses being able to open and make money. It's hurting a lot of people that's got businesses, and that hurts. When it hurts them, it hurts us in Lancaster County. I like for Lancaster County to stand out in everything they do because I'm very proud of my my county. I'm very proud of my county, and I appreciate everybody that works to make it better and to make our county better. And I know this is a big thing with all the counties around in South Carolina. They're all wondering what in the world, they're making all kind of crazy laws and rules and regulations. Lancaster County ought to stand out and say, look, you know what? We've got a problem here, but I don't know that mask helps it all that much. It might not. But I don't know. I just think we just need to move forward. Quit letting this be don't let it cripple our county. Put people back to work. Put kids back in school. I just think we'd all be better off if we did. And that's all. That's just my opinion. And I'm a nobody. I don't have a doctor's degree or nothing else, but I sure do talking to a lot of people, and I sure do read a lot of information from doctors on the COVID. Then most of the literature I get and I read, the majority of the doctors are saying these masks aren't really helping anyway. But that's just my vote. I'm ready to move on, and that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henson. Kim Lineberger.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your time. As a business owner in Lancaster County, it concerns me that somebody mandates that my employees have to wear a mask and that I have to be responsible for that and that I could pay a fine for that. I'm not sure how that would be enforced, what the fine is, and there's also so many questions about consequences of wearing a mask, the liabilities. So if I require my employees to wear a mask and they get sick, is that a workers' comp claim? Is that a liability claim? Is that a general liability? Who pays that medical bill? So I think there are too many unanswered questions for and against those masks for somebody to come out and mandate the businesses that we enforce that. So I completely support the resolution to encourage it. I think it should be a personal decision and we should be personally responsible for our health choices. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lineberger. Bob Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Administrator, Mr. Chairman, and members of the council. My name is Bob Henderson. I'm the chairman and founder of Nutramax Laboratories. And, I'm here tonight just to tell you what we think about it and how we go about our business. You know, I'm sure, I live at 1160 John Everall, I'm sorry. I'm sure we can all agree that we've never seen a flu or a virus cause so much upheaval and so much dissension amongst people in our country. COVID-19 is one of 5 coronaviruses that our immune systems have to deal with and have been dealing with. They can cause illness, especially in the elderly and in people with compromised immune systems and other conditions. In most cases, you know, it's actually very mild and quick. You know, at Nutramax, we have over 500 employees. We do not require a mask, but it's up to the individual. We have very few people using them. And we've had, I believe it's 8 positive cases. They've gone out, quarantined, come back. It has not spread to any of their coworkers. They brought it in from the outside. So we're very pleased, and we also offer them some immune stimulants that actually we make that will help build up the immune system. Now, COVID-19 is the most contagious of all the coronaviruses that we know so far. The other 4 are less because we've encountered them for years. Since we were children, we've encountered the cold viruses, and we developed immunity to them, just like we're going to do with COVID-19. It's really not going anywhere. Though it's contagious, you know, it's not really that deadly. The deaths are mostly comprised of a set of people that are elderly, compromised immune systems, and we should focus on educating them, on giving them good nutrition, fresh air, sunshine, and known agents that can help build up and support the immune system. Now, I don't know if you remember 2009, we had the H1N1 flu virus. The CDC reports 60.8 million cases in that year. We've hit 5 million cases so far with COVID-19. And actually here in South Carolina, we have a 0.38% death rate. That's really very low. And again, it's concentrated in a group of people that we sort of, I guess, ignore. We really don't take that good care of them. Now, so are we going to shut down our businesses, our schools, you know, scare people into wearing masks, staying at home, not socializing, changing our whole way of life? In South Carolina, people are friendly. Now, they're not even as friendly. Are we going to do that just to stop a virus that we're always going to, if it's not this one, it's going to be another one? We got to learn to let our immune systems do its job. God gave us a wonderful body with a wonderful immune system. All we have to do is support it. Now let's look at what OSHA has to say about the mask. That's what we're here to talk about today. Respirators are designed to reduce exposure for high-risk workers. Airborne contaminants, but must be fitted professionally and worn properly. Great for hospital workers and people that are dealing with patients that are infected with any kind of influenza or coronavirus. What they say about surgical masks. They're a physical barrier to protect splashes from large droplets of blood or body fluids. They are not designed to prevent inhalation of small airborne particles, and they do not seal tightly to the face. Basically, not very effective against the virus. Cloth masks, they don't even mention them. They certainly can't stop a virus with particles so small that the largest ones have to be looked at under a light microscope with very high resolution to even see them. Cloth masks can actually have an adverse effect. They're able to trap particles of bacteria and other viruses, fungus, and whatever's coming out or in your own breath. Today, cloth masks seem to be a fashion statement and actually provide a lot of false security.
Could you go ahead and wrap it up, Dr. Bob?
Okay. Businesses in Lancaster have been closed. They've been hurt. We don't want to do that. We certainly don't want to be forcibly making citizens wear face mask coverings. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you to use the facts and not the media hype, not the scare tactics when making your decisions that affect all the citizens of Lancaster County. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Amber Kenahan? Kenahan, I'm close.
My name is Amber Cannon. My address is 1507 Cabinet Drive in Heath Springs. I am an RN and graduated in 2002. I now serve as the role of a head of research for a large corporation. I dig into answers and find the answers and truth when it comes to masks, there's a lot of truth out there. Everywhere I go, I see people wearing cloth masks, but do they work? If masks were about preventing the spread of COVID, let me ask you these questions. Why are we safe to take them off in a restaurant to eat? If a COVID patient is seated at a table and sneezes, it will travel more than 8 feet and can spray as high as 13 to 20 feet in the air. If safety were the issue, no one would advise us to make our own mask. There's no safety testing there. Let's look at the facts. Let's start with a clinical trial published in 2015. It had over 1,600 participants and studied cloth mask versus medical mask. The results: 97% of particles made it through the cloth mask. 44% made it through the medical mask. Neither of them was effective at preventing the spread of infection. The National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine noted on April 8, 2020, that although cloth masks may stop large respiratory droplets, zero evidence exists proving they stop aerosols and the spread of COVID-19. Even the World Health Organization said on June 5th that masks alone are insufficient to provide adequate level of protection or source control. We are told repeatedly that we should wear a mask to stop the spread and that it's perfectly safe. Is it? A 2004 study researched N95 mask in kidney disease patients. 39 patients took part. The results? 70% had lower PaO2. That's the partial pressure oxygen. This is the measurement of oxygen pressure in your arterial blood. If it's low, oxygen won't be able to move from your lungs to your bloodstream the way that it should. In this study, almost 3/4 of the patients had lower PaO2. 19% experienced hypoxia or low oxygen levels. They also had more chest pain and respiratory distress. A September 2019 study looked at N95 mask and medical mask for preventing the flu in healthcare workers. The study had over 2,800 participants. In the N95 group, there were 2,386 cases of flu, respiratory illness, and respiratory infection. In the medical mask group, there were 2,638 cases of flu, respiratory illness, and respiratory infection. Their conclusion was that neither mask worked better than the other, and as you can see by the numbers, they did a poor job at protecting against anything at all. Why would this be any different with COVID? Masks don't work. They don't prevent colds, they don't prevent the flu, and they lower your oxygen levels, and that's dangerous. I urge you to make a decision based on facts and not based on the response of other counties. And please also think about our Constitution, our God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These masks perpetuate fear. They're making our community unhealthier instead of protecting it. And think about what it's doing to our children who see this day in and day out. This is not normal, nor is it necessary for a virus that has a 98.05% survival rate in our state. It could be higher than that. In fact, it has only claimed the lives of less than 0.1% of our population here in South Carolina. To mandate a mask for public safety, there has to be a benchmark, something to determine the quality and effectiveness, as well as guidelines stated of when and why the mandate will be lifted. This should be science-based, not fear-based. Without these, there's no validity to such a mandate now or ever. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ruth?
Good evening, Ruth Blair, 5114 Foxmead Court, Lancaster, South Carolina, 29720. I appreciate all of you for hearing my comments here tonight. I am a mother of 4 and a wife, and of course a Lancaster citizen. When I first heard about these masks, a lot of red flags went off in my mind, and I wondered what the efficacy of these masks were. I spoke with my friend who is a surgeon, and he said that this is known knowledge that these masks do not protect from viruses. So I was wondering, what's going on with this narrative? And I'm sure many of you, if you are honest, were asking the same questions. In general, when talking with friends and family and others in public, I've noticing them complain of having sore throats, dizziness, even headaches from wearing the masks. Those within my circle who have tested positive for COVID were indeed wearing masks, some of them surgical, others made from cloth. So if they work, why do they test positive and why do they get sick? Earlier in the spring, the tests were in question. I spoke with a hospital administrator off the record who told me that some of these COVID tests were actually testing positive without being used. This is a cause of concern. Earlier in spring, there was national news that these tests were faulty. What's being done in our county to ensure that this isn't happening here? Are there any procedures in place? Is my question. Also, are there procedures in place or a survey acknowledging, like at hospitals and these testing sites, to ensure that these patients were wearing masks? I think it would be helpful. You know, okay, you tested positive, were you wearing a mask? I don't know. My neighbor wears a mask pretty avidly. He's a good man, and he wants to protect his fellow citizen as well as himself. He got very sick. And just kind of briefing and looking over some of the OSHA requirements, I realized that there were certain procedures that are in place, breathing tests, et cetera, to ensure if it's even safe for people to wear masks. And if they don't require it. In hospitals, I've heard doctors speak out publicly on the news talking about how, well, it's okay to wear masks, we do it every day. But what they don't realize is that the amount of oxygen in the hospitals are actually increased to make it a better environment. Earlier this year, the Surgeon General in March said masks were ineffective. Dr. Anthony Fauci, in a 60 Minutes interview, said masks are ineffective. Are you willing to stand behind these inconsistencies? If not, why are you asking us to? Thank you.
Thank you. Brenda Williams.
Brenda Williams, 765 Baxley Farm Road, Kershaw, South Carolina, 29067. And I appreciate y'all letting me speak tonight. I am co-owner of Kershaw Auction, Brenda K's in Kershaw. And I am against the mask. They don't work. I suffer from migraines, and ever since I've been having to wear a mask, I go home every day with a migraine headache. My nephew, he is a cancer survivor, and he goes every 6 months for his blood count. Well, he's been getting good reports, except last week. Since he had to start wearing a mask, he had high levels of carbon dioxide in his blood from wearing a mask, CO2 exchange. I'm against this. They don't work. They make you sicker. Like today, I was filling up my pepper shakers at work. It went through the mask, and I started sneezing. I pulled the mask off, and I've got black dust all over the mask. These masks are ineffective. They don't work. If you want to wear the mask, that's fine. But I don't think that the ones that don't want to wear the mask, it shouldn't be pushed on. And my motto is, if the Lord wants you, he's going to get you with or without this mask. Thank y'all for letting me talk.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we got one more. Mike Borquez. How bad I butchered that?
You got it right. All right, I'm Brenda's husband. I'm 765 Baxley Farm Road in Kershaw, and I own Kershaw Auction and Brenda K's Restaurant along with her. I also own M&M Service Center and M&M Auto Parts. Now, Brenda and I, we run 4 mom and pop businesses. And as you know, the way things have gone the last few months, it's been a real struggle for small businesses. The businesses that survive are the big ones like Walmart, Burger King, McDonald's, okay? Those that have billions and billions and billions of dollars in resources rather. And they didn't get hurt at any of this. All those drive-up businesses are doing more than they ever did before. Walmart was one of the stores the governor said could stay open while all the other little shoe stores and everything else had to close. Why is that? Okay. Now I understand that that with this mask law that you're going to put into effect, that businesses are going to get fined if they serve people that don't have a mask on. If somebody walks into my service center, okay, and want their car fixed, if they don't have a mask on and my employees don't have a mask on, you're going to fine me $500? Is that correct? It's cheaper for me just to close and go on unemployment. Matter of fact, some of our employees that worked at the restaurant, they were collecting that unemployment for all those months, And they didn't want to come back to work because they were making more money collecting unemployment than they were working. So how does it work? Who's going to pay back that money? You know, if you want to shut us down, it's just going to make the economy worse. Sheila Hinson and I are both on the board for the Chamber of Commerce in Kershaw, and we haven't had a meeting in 6 months, okay? We can't even go around town and do anything to help the businesses in Kershaw because nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to communicate with anybody. You know, the whole mask deal should be up to the individual, okay? I believe in the social distancing, staying 6 feet apart, okay? But it should be up to the individual to have the mask on. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That concludes our citizens' comments this evening. And let's move down to item number 7, our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve consent agendas items 7A and 7B.
I have a motion from Mr. Marcello, a second from Ms. McGriff. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. We will now move down to, we have moved item 9D, consideration of a potential emergency ordinance providing for face coverings or resolution encouraging the use of face coverings. Mr. Willis.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, would note for the record, this item is coming to you at the direction of the governor in his executive order 2020-50. He directed that local governments consider, didn't mandate, but consider mask ordinances. So this is coming to you tonight with 3 options. We have, number 1, an ordinance that was modeled after Charleston County's ordinance. That was the least obtrusive we could find. I'll be the first to tell you there are a gazillion different mask ordinances out there. This was the least obtrusive we could find, but it was modeled after Charleston County. Second is a resolution encouraging, but not mandating, the use of facial coverings or face masks during the current pandemic. This was modeled after York County's recent resolution that York County passed as a resolution. And of course, you can take no action. Main thing is we have checked the box. Y'all are now considering what the governor has directed y'all to consider, but the final decision, of course, rests with y'all. As I noted earlier, I do need to note that regardless of what council decides tonight, there are places where wearing of mask or face coverings is mandatory at this very moment before you have even acted, due to the actions of others. Restaurants, by order of Governor McMaster. Public gatherings, such as athletic events, by order of Governor McMaster. And just so y'all be aware, we are working with law enforcement. If we have somebody that's at a Parks and Recreation event and they refuse to wear the mask, then at that point, Parks and Rec staff will ask nicely. If they still refuse, we'll call law enforcement. One of the things in the governor's executive order for restaurants and public gatherings, he required local governments to enforce his order. We have no choice. That, in essence, is state law, and we have to enforce it. At schools and school buses, by order of Secretary of Education Spearman, masks are going to be worn, not optional, going to be worn. That's up to Jonathan Phipps what they're going to do if somebody doesn't wear a mask. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know. I have enough to worry about with the restaurants and the public gatherings that the governor's ordered us to look at. Courthouses and court facilities, by order of the Chief Justice. Masks have to be worn, and you won't get in that building without a mask. If you refuse to wear one, you won't go past the front door. The deputies will kindly escort you directly out of the building. State buildings, order of the governor. They're required to be worn. You go out to DMV, some of our state facilities across the street, but of course the Chief Justice's order already covers that. Do need to let council know that by the end of the week, I'm looking at having an administrative directive to mirror for our county facilities what the governor has directed for state facilities as far as wearing mask coverings. It's no secret to anybody here. We have employees that have COVID. They've been exposed, and we're doing our best. What I don't want to do is end up like Anderson County or Beaufort County, where they shut down their entire county administrative building operations, all within the last month, because COVID was running rampant throughout their departments. Charleston County had several departments they shut down. That's the big counties. As I've mentioned to council, we're going back to some of the split shifts, because what I don't want to do is I can't run the risk of having some of our departments just wiped out. If everybody is present and we don't take precautions in the treasurer's office, and it's the end of the month and somebody comes up and needs a tag, if I got everybody in the treasurer's office under quarantine, we're hung. I mean, there is nobody else. We're not that big an operation. So we will be looking at taking some administrative steps to mirror what the governor has directed for state facilities and county facilities. At this point, this matter comes to y'all, and as administrator, I'm recommending you look at the resolution. I fall squarely in the camp of Dr. Bell. A statewide directive is needed, but we all know that's not going to happen. Councilman Carnes has noted that as well publicly. It would be a nightmare for our businesses. As if you heard from several of them earlier tonight, if we have one set of rules, City of Lancaster's got another set of rules, Town of Kershaw's got another set of rules. Had one email that y'all received. Mr. Haynes, he had emailed, but his business is actually in the City of Lancaster, and I made sure he was aware that if council were to pass an ordinance, it's not effective inside the City of Lancaster. No county ordinance is effective inside any municipality. Doesn't matter what the topic is. But as you've heard tonight, I think it would be problematic from our businesses. That's basically where we are. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them, but basically the governor has directed y'all take a look at this. You're taking a look.
All right, as Mr. Willis stated, there are three options. We can do nothing. We can look at the ordinance, making face mask mandatory, like the one in Charleston, or what York County passed was a resolution just encouraging the wearing of masks. So to discuss either one of these items, I'll probably need a motion.
Chairman, I'd like to make the motion that we pass the resolution that highly encourages the use of mask. I do believe masks help, contrary to some of the things we've heard. If it only helps 3%, it helps 3%. Of course, I believe in social distancing and I believe in washing hands. But clearly, in my district, the majority, clear majority, do not want to be mandated to wear masks. So therefore, I move that we pass the resolution. Second.
I have a motion for Mr. Blackman, a second for Mr. Honeycutt to pass the resolution encouraging the use of masks. So I'm ready for discussion. Ms. McGriff.
Mr. Chair, first of all, I do want everybody to understand this is not something that council decided to put on the agenda. As Steve said, this was by direction of our governor. So he asked that we make some sort of emergency ordinance or what we're doing tonight, resolution. But personally, I don't think enough research has been done to determine whether this corona disease, that we should wear a mask or not. Right now, I think we're all just, at position of does it work or does it not work? But when history is written, I personally want to be on the side of caution. And if wearing a mask can prevent anyone death, sickness, I'm in favor of that. But I hope you make your own personal decision as to whether you think you should wear a mask or not. And that's your decision to make. I've made mine, and it's left up to you to make yours.
Mr. Graham.
Mr. Chairman, I have received lots of emails, both for and against. It's interesting to me that the people that were against gave me stats or scientific data why the face mask don't work. The ones before just said to pass it on. I'm reluctant as a council member to even encourage people to wear a mask because I don't know if it works or doesn't work. It will give those people a false sense of security. I see people in the stores wearing masks. They're touching their faces. They're moving them up and down. And above all, what they do in the store, they get someone off the shelf, they put it back on, they touched it. So I'm not opposed to people making their own decisions to wear face masks. I am reluctant to put my name behind something to say that a face mask will prevent COVID. I think the science shows that it's very, very doubtful that it does.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I agree with Terry. I also believe that if our governor mandates eventually, if our cases don't go down, that he may mandate that we will wear a mask. I hope that doesn't happen because I'm not in favor of it, but if he mandates we got to, then we don't have any choice. That won't be something Lancaster County Council will be doing. It'll be done from the governor's office. I don't look for that to happen because I think our cases are beginning to decline some right now and hope it stays that way. I wear my mask. My wife wears her mask. We're in our 80s. We don't choose to take a lot of chances with it simply because the information we got is people of our age should probably wear a mask. Does it help? I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I do wonder why do doctors wear masks when they operate on you? Why do all the nurses wear masks when they operate on you? There must be something to it to help protect them. So if it helps me, then I'll wear my mask, but I don't want to mandate that you have to do that. I don't think that's right for us to do it. It should be up to the individual. But right now, if you want to get in a good restaurant, you better take your mask or you won't be allowed in. Department stores, you won't be allowed in if you don't have a mask. Whether that's right or wrong, I do not know. I just know that we've got a serious problem, and whatever it takes to get us through it, I'm for it. But I don't want us to mandate anything on the citizens of this county.
Anyone, Mr. Mostello?
I agree with what some of y'all are saying. I believe it should be people's choice. It is a matter of the individual being comfortable going in a store or going to church or wherever they go. If they want to wear a mask, let them wear it. If they don't feel comfortable, that mask is working, stay home. Wash your hands. Do social distancing. I mean, I don't think we can mandate anybody to wear these masks. I just think we ought to just leave it at people's choice, my personal opinion.
Go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Willis brought up in his comments one of the base issues that we see when we're trying to deal with this is that for every city, every town, every county that has an ordinance, it's different. There is no set ordinance. The governor, if he was going to do something like this, he should have at least had DHEC provide an ordinance that would be consistent throughout the state, so that you're not going from Lancaster to Kershaw and you're finding out that there are different things that you have to obey. Number two is we don't have the police resources to have people going out and getting after people that aren't wearing masks when we have they're stretched as thin as possible to get out there and do the job that they're required to do. And for us to add this load on them, I think is unreasonable. I do think that, passing a resolution to encourage wearing masks is something that we need to do. I don't know about others, but my wife is claustrophobic, and her wearing a mask is just terrible. If she gets into a place and she gets a little tense or whatever, it's like she's moving that mask all over trying to breathe, It's not doing her any good putting her hands all over her face to try to keep a mask on that may or may not help her. And I know that there's a lot of other people that have the same condition. I saw about a week ago, I was in the grocery store, and the lady in front of me must have moved her mask 10 times in the 2 minutes that she was sitting there getting ready to check out. I mean, it's like somebody said, you pick up the bottle and somebody else has picked it up before you. Well, she's unloaded all of her groceries there that everybody else may have touched, and then she's sitting there playing with her face because she can't stand to have the mask on. So that's my 2 cents.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make one more comment, please.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to say thank you to all the citizens that have come out and commented, all the ones that have written emails. I have gotten instant messages. I got 3 while I was driving here tonight. This is a rare time in government where the citizens have spoken, and you guys have made your voice heard. And a lot of times we're up here doing things and we don't hear from people. And we do the best we can trying to do the will of the people without a whole lot of input. But in this case, we've gotten a lot of input. And I just want to thank y'all for taking the time to do that, whether it be coming tonight or sending those private messages on my Facebook account or emailing my government account. I really appreciate what you've done tonight. So thank you so much.
I echo Mr. Blackman's comments there. We sit here and we did our budget. What is our total budget? Had a public hearing, we had 0 comments, so
50 million general funds.
50 million. So I encourage all y'all that are interested in this to next year also be involved in our government. Know what's going on and where your money is being spent. And next year show up for the public hearing and the budget and make comments on that, and I would appreciate it. And I too, like I think everybody else up here, I respect when I go to a business, it says mask. I'll put it on if I want to go in there. If I want to go eat or certain, I know federal buildings or state buildings you have to have it. So I wear it when I'm required to. But as far as I think it's up to each individual. And also, like Mr. Blackman said, we know it's not 100% effective, but it might be 3, it might be 30, but if you want to wear it, I think it should be up to the citizens. So at this point, is there any more discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I've got one more comment. The gentleman here mentioned about the $500 fine and things like that. And if people hear that kind of stuff, I wish they would call one of us. I had not heard that. That's all news to me. But I haven't heard anybody say anything about a fine or we're going to take your car or lock you up, something like that. That's not going to happen. Just call one of us. If you hear something like that, we'd be glad. If we don't know it, we'll find out.
All right, so at this time, we got a motion from Mr. Blackman, a second from Mr. Honeycutt to pass a resolution with council only recommending that masks be worn, no requirements. Any more discussion? I think we're ready to vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. We thank y'all for coming. You're welcome to stay, but I'm going to take a couple-minute break. If you want to leave, go right ahead.
Okay. Just give it to her. She'll pass it on. Stop the problem. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. They did, yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go to the restroom while we got a break.
let's move on down to, item 8A, a resolution 1094-R 2020 regarding an inducement resolution for the Cross Ridge Business Class A Office Speculation Building. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion for Mr. Carnes, a second.
Second.
Second for Ms. McGriff. I can't hear you. Mr. Graham. Sorry about that. Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. You have in front of you tonight both a resolution and then following that an ordinance to provide a fee agreement for a speculative office building that is proposed for the Cross Ridge development. This is the INSP property. As you know, they are working on a mixed-use development. The first project in there is the brand new YMCA, and they originally had plans to develop the campus for a mixed use of primarily retail with a little bit of office. And in the last 12 months, despite the issues we see nationally and locally, they have made a decision that long-term, one of the best fits for that property would be the development of a corporate office park. So they have proposed the construction of 400,000 square feet of Class A office, with the first project that they would look to break ground on next month, a 120,000 square foot Class A office building. You have the flyer in your handouts. This would be a 4-story office building, 30,000 square feet on each floor, and really it's being positioned for a headquarters facility. This is not going to be a customer service back office type of operation, and we have several of those in the county, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with back offices, but this is designed to attract, you know, a Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 type of company. As you know, for almost 4 years now since you brought me on board, the one consistent issue that I have been talking about is the need for product, whether that's sites that are ready and available to accommodate corporate offices, or if it's sites down here in Lancaster and in Indyland for manufacturing. We have a real shortage of those properties, and we certainly have a shortage of available buildings to be able to accommodate new and expanding businesses that want to be here in Lancaster County. And we've always debated the issue, do we go and do we, as a county, invest money in these properties, direct funding to build industrial buildings or even office buildings? And we've always said, no, that's not what we want to do. But what we will do is consider assisting developers that are going to take that risk. And in this case, you have a developer taking a major risk when the economy is starting to get better but still is shaky, that is willing to provide the product that we need to better attract businesses here. That's a great initiative, and it's one economic development supports. And I would hope the council tonight would see the benefit of this project. And what we're presenting and asking council to do from the Department of Economic Development is to assist this development group in this major risk that they're taking. And so what is before you is a fee agreement, a resolution first, and then an ordinance with an agreement that would do several things. One is it would provide a 20-year fee in lieu of tax agreement for the project. The project is a $26 million facility. That's significant, right? And so the 20 years would provide a 6% assessment on the building itself and the land. Now, that property already is, whether you have a fee in lieu of tax agreement or not, it's already assessed at 6%. But it would provide a fixed millage rate for that property of 325.4 mils. The 6% would also apply to any personal property inside that building. And usually, though, that would be done, I say that, but that probably would not apply here. It would apply for when we get a prospect that goes into that building, and then we would have a separate agreement with them when their machinery and equipment. But 6% is what you would find as the assessment rate on an office building. The fixed millage goes along with that. And then we're asking for a 10-year special source revenue credit that would abate a portion of that annual fee payment. So for 10 years, they would have that in place. And, normally when we do special source revenue credits, we have it when there's a project in hand and we know how many jobs are going to be there. We're asking for this special source revenue credit without that, again, because the developer's willing to take that risk. And since we're not going to do this as a county and it's a tough time, we think that the special source revenue credit and the enhanced amount here would be appropriate. So what that breaks out to is the first year it would be a 70% abatement of the fee payment. It would be 63% in years 2 and 3, and then a 50% credit in years 4 through 10. What does that mean in terms of total taxes generated from this project? Essentially, for the first 10 years with those incentives, the county would receive, or overall taxes generated, I should say, because we have county, we have school district, and we have USCL that receive those funds. The generated taxes would be about $2.5 million for the first 10 years, and we're looking at about $7.5 million over 20 years once those SSRCs go away. That's money that would not exist or doesn't exist right now, and it's also probably money that wouldn't exist if we didn't provide some help with the developer for the project. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Any questions?
Mr. Gilbert, you said that will be one of several that may go up there, several buildings?
Yes, sir. So this is the first of several buildings. You're probably looking, when I say the 400,000 square feet, there's already 100,000 square feet. That's the existing INSP building. This adds another 125,000 to the mix. That leaves approximately at that point about another 175,000 square feet of office space that would be built out there. And if it's successful, who knows? Some of the properties that may currently be designated for retail could end up being office developments as well.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Jamie, I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Are there room around this for retail?
Yes, if you look at the site plan that's in your package, you'll see that the way this is set up is the YMCA is in the back. This speculative office building would go between INSP's current headquarters building and the little building that's like the coffee shop, chapel-looking building in the front. And then where they've cleared out everything else, that whole property from about the YMCA halfway up towards 521 would be office, and then from that point to the road would be the retail location.
Okay, that's good. I know it listed a lot of it in the package of retail already in place in the area, so I was just saying that what would maybe spin off of this, basically.
Yeah, I mean, from an economic development perspective, I mean, we're seeing a lot of retail, obviously, with Promenade that has come in, certainly with Redstone, and the nature of retail is changing so much, and COVID-19 has changed that. I mean, we were already seeing the trend where a lot of online orders and Amazon were really filling the retail need. So how much there is available to go around in terms of retail in Indian, I'm not sure. But again, what you have is a property that if retail is not in demand, and we have satisfied what we can handle here in the county, I think you could see that property be used for, again, office development.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Mr. Gilbert, I know back earlier in the year, one of the things that you said was that a lot of the corporate offices and places like that were looking to locate in an urban area, but we have seen now since COVID has hit us and we've been in this for a while that the trend has changed and they're looking at urban areas again, and this just falls perfectly in place for that kind of situation.
I think that's correct. So, the first 4 years, I've been here 4 years. The first 2 years, we saw a huge demand for office projects, and we landed some big ones with, CompuCom and Service Mac coming in and moving Mortgage 2. Their second building that, got, Service Mac located here. But the last 2 years, prior to 2020, so maybe the middle of 18 and all of 19, we weren't seeing that office activity. Every project that was coming into the Charlotte region seemed to want to locate in uptown Charlotte or South Charlotte. And they wanted the mass transit access, they wanted the concentration of young workforce and things like that. And now what you're seeing is that, with COVID-19 and the need for, social distancing and people not wanting necessarily ride on mass transit, even with the issues of just questionable what's going to happen in terms of security and safety as an issue. It's swinging back to the suburban office market. We're seeing that by the projects that are picking up and wanting to go to the Indian Land area. So I think this is coming at the right time. I mean, there's still questions about how office will look in the future. Will they be smaller? Will there be people working remotely? I mean, that remains to be seen. But I still think that you're going to see that trend of remote working start to, as we get through the whole COVID-19 issue, where people want to come back and be in a workplace with people because of the synergies and the, what you get. You get that whole workforce being able to develop ideas, which you don't get by being on Zoom.
All right, thank you. Stay where you're at. We'll be right back to you. Yep. Any more discussion? I think we're ready to vote. Have resolution 1094-R 2020. We have a recommendation, motion to approve. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Let's go to 8B, first reading of ordinance 2020-1679 regarding authorization of a fee agreement between Lancaster County and Cross Ridge Center LLC. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
From Ms. McGriff. Who seconded that? Mr. Carnes. Mr. Gilbert. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Did we approve the resolution?
On the ordinance, anything?
This is our first reading for the ordinance.
First reading of ordinance, I'm sorry. Okay. First reading of ordinance 2020-1679 regarding
it's essentially
authorization between the fee agreement between Lancaster and Cross Ridge.
Right. What this does is just provide the actual agreement that goes along with the resolution that you have just approved. So everything we talked about in terms of what the FILO and the SSRC are in terms of those terms, those conditions are included in this ordinance under the agreement.
Any questions for Mr. Gilbert? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I think we're ready to vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous agreement. First reading of ordinance 2020-1679. Okay, now we move down to 8C. We have a public hearing and resolution 1095-R 2020 regarding approval of a conditional use application to permit a non-franchise car dealership. Applicant is Roman Livensau. We have a report from staff on this. Mr. Burheads.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The item before you, as you have mentioned, is a proposed conditional use permit request for a car sales lot facility. The site is located at 1962 John Everell Road, and the site consists of a 1 acre approximate property, and the applicant is Roman Livensau. This site may look familiar to you. Back in 2019, the council did rezone this property to the rural business district. The The subject property is surrounded predominantly by residential, but there are allowances for rural commercial opportunities in the rural business district. Consistent with all of our conditional use permit applications, a site plan is prepared to show the how the property is intended to be used, and that's reflected on the screen here. And just to give you some location photos, the photo on the left is looking at the subject property directly. Some may recognize it. It was previously used as a convenience store, but has been vacant for a good many years. The photo on the right is looking across on John Everell Road. The photo on your left is looking northeast on John Everell Road, and the photo on the right is looking northwest on John Everell Road. The Planning Commission considered this at their July meeting, where they voted unanimously to recommend approval, subject to staff comments. The comments were largely just of a kind of informational nature to prepare the applicant for future permitting requirements. I will certainly make myself available for any questions, and the applicant is in the audience this evening if you have any questions of the applicant.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Perhans?
Mr. Chairman, just note for the record, nobody signed up for the public hearing.
Okay, we do have a public hearing, and I will allow anyone that wants to speak on this matter to come forth, state your name. Seeing that no one wants to speak, we will close this public hearing, and I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to floor.
I move to approve.
Motion from Mr. Mosteller, second from Ms. McGriff. Discussion. Ready to vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Resolution 1095-R 2020. Let's move down to 8D, public hearing and resolution 1096-R 2020 regarding approval of conditional use application to permit a non-franchise car dealership at 2160 Flat Creek Road. We'll have a report from staff from Mr. Perhans.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is yet again another conditional use permit application for a proposed car sales facility. As you've referenced, it's located at 2160 Flat Creek Road, near the intersection of Hillsdale Road. The zoning for the property is general business, and the applicant is 903 Motors. Just to give everyone a geographic reference, again, that's the subject property is located at the corner of Flat Creek and Hilldale Road, and is surrounded by predominantly commercial and residential zoning. And again, the site plan is provided here. Again, the facility has previously been used for automotive purposes for, I believe, prior sales and repair activities. But here's a plan that was prepared by the applicant as required by the process. And again, just some photos. Looking directly at the subject property is the left photo. On the right is looking east along Flat Creek Road. The next set of photos on the left is looking northeast across from the subject property, and the right photo is looking northwest along Flat Creek Road. Again, the Planning Commission considered this at their July meeting, where they voted unanimously to recommend approval. Again, subject to staff comments, which were largely just of an informational nature. Make myself available for any questions that you have.
Mr. Chairman, question. It's non-franchise. Is this a used car lot we're talking about?
That is correct.
Okay.
Any more questions for Mr. Perhans?
Just one question. When you look at the letter of notification for plan review, it talks about David Gamble, SC DOT, says not approved. Is that only because he hasn't aligned the driveway yet?
That's correct. Our outside agencies typically will note an item as being not approved if they have conditions or items they want to see for their future permitting processes, like Mr. Gamble. So there's no expectation to have the driveway realigned at this early stage in the process, but he definitely wanted to make the applicant aware that you have this expectation when you go through our driveway permitting process.
he probably will have to move it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I can note for the record, nobody signed up for the public hearing.
Okay, just like before, if anyone wants to speak on this matter, come forward and state your name and address. Seeing no one would like to speak, we will close our public hearing, and I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. McGriff.
Second.
Second from Mr. Blackman. Any more discussion? Think we're ready to vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Resolution 1096-R 2020. Let's go to 8E, Resolution 1097-R 2020 regarding amending the inducement resolution for PPE manufacturing to locate production operations to Lancaster County. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Carnes, second from Ms. McGriff. Mr. Gilbert.
As you all know, back in April, you approved a resolution which we call the Life-Saving Medical Products Supply Chain Initiative. That resolution made a verbal commitment, approval from the county, that should we have a project that would be reshoring what we consider to be life-saving medical products, or if it were a new company that had just received federal approval to sell those products in the United States, that we would provide a significant incentive package to try to stabilize the supply chain to avoid the disruptions we've seen from COVID-19, from past situations where we've had natural disasters, you have trade wars, you have real wars that can cause a major disruption in life-saving medical products, from pharmaceuticals to machinery and equipment to PPE, and that puts us all at risk. And so we felt as a community, as a council, as Department of Economic Development, that it was important to do what we could to try to encourage those companies that are making these products offshore to locate them in the United States, so that we don't see that negative impact when we have times of need for those products. But we also talked about increasing the supply chain in general. While reshoring is a big element of that, there's also new companies that are coming about that want to start up and be created to be able to help supply those chains. And so if there's something that requires them to get a federal approval, whether it's to certify that the PPE is at a certain level for protection, then that would count. So we wanted to come back and revisit the resolution to include that, but we also wanted to provide some specific parameters, some minimum numbers that were there for job creation, wage rates, and investment to be able to qualify for those incentives. That's what this resolution does tonight. It actually supersedes the other one. So what you'll find in here are a couple of items related to job creation and investment. So the first is that a company would have to have a minimal capital investment of $3,500,000 to be able to qualify for the incentives. The second would be that they have to create at least 40 qualified jobs within the first 3 years of starting the operation. And qualified jobs are those jobs that pay a wage rate of at least $14 an hour and provide medical benefits. We also included in here the provision that existing property, whether that be land, buildings, machinery, and equipment that are currently on the county tax rolls, would not be eligible for the incentives. So you wouldn't get the 100% abatement for 10 years of those property taxes for anything that is currently being taxed here in the county. That doesn't mean we wouldn't look to do something to help a company with those taxes, but you're not going to get the 100% abatement for 10 years on that. So those are the major changes to the original resolution that you approved back in April, and I'll be happy to take any questions you have about this resolution.
Any questions for Mr. Gilbert? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I think we're ready to vote. Resolution 1097-2020, all in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Let's move down to, I think it's 8F. We have public hearing and second reading of ordinance 2020-1676 regarding amending the Lancaster County Code related to alarms. Mr. Willis.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, there is no change on this from first reading. This deletes certain obsolete sections in the burglar alarm section. This is coming to you at the request of the Sheriff's Office and Development Services. It's on here simply for public hearing. And note for the record, nobody signed up for the public hearing.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Willis? Thank you. Would anyone like to speak on this? Seeing no one would like to speak, we'll close our little public hearing, and I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Who got it? Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Graham, second for Mr. Bostella. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. We skipping G. Let's go down to 8H, public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2020-1681 regarding rezoning property owned by Indian Land Ventures LLC from MX to RB. Applicant is Whitehall Development Group LLC. Mr. Burhans.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. This is, as you've referenced, is a proposed rezoning of a single approximately 15-acre parcel from a mixed-use district to the regional business district. As it may have become, as may be apparent, this is one of our mixed-use properties that, because of acreage, has significant development challenges and ultimately needs to be rezoned to realize its full potential. The property is located just southeast of the intersection of 521 and Collins Road, approximately 300 feet southeast. And the applicant is Whitehall Development Group, as you've referenced. Okay, just to show you the location of the property is outlined in blue. It is purple. The surrounding zoning is just predominantly general business with a little bit of institutional and neighborhood business. Just to give you oriented in terms of photographs, looking east at the subject property and from Collins Road is the left photo. On the right-hand side, you're looking northeast at adjacent properties from 521. The left photo is looking southwest at adjacent properties. And the right photo is looking north across Collins Road. The Planning Commission did take this item up at their July meeting, where there were no public comments provided from the citizens. The Planning Commission discussed this and did find it consistent with the comprehensive plan. They also voted unanimously to recommend approval of the regional business zoning classification. We are going to note that staff actually had recommended a general business classification. It would support the ultimate use of the property for, I believe, a residential care facility and commercial uses on the remnant acreage, and is more consistent with the surrounding zoning in that area. However, the Planning Commission felt regional business was reasonable, and that was their recommendation. I'll make myself available for any questions that you have.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say that, just for the clarification, that the recommendation of the Planning Commission here says 5-1, not unanimous.
Mine is say 6-0. I'll be happy to confirm that.
Well, I just want that for the record, no big deal. Well, I don't know. I'm only reading off what my computer tells me.
I've got my notes say it was a unanimous recommendation. However, we will certainly confirm it.
That's fine. Do we have any idea what's going there?
It's as we understand it, a significant portion of the property is going to be used for a residential care facility, a place where senior age citizens can live.
Mr. Burhan, could you get closer to that mic? I'm having trouble hearing you. I'm sorry.
I apologize. So a significant portion of the property is going to be used for what's called a residential care facility. So a facility where a senior-aged person or couple can move into and live, but they'd have some of their caregiving services provided. That might be meals, that might be some minor nursing care, social activities, and the like. And so that's only for a portion of the property. The remainder of the property, as we understand it, is going to be developed for commercial purposes that haven't been determined yet.
All right. Any more questions for Mr. Burhans? I think we have a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, we note for the record, nobody signed up for the public hearing.
Okay. If anyone would like to speak on this, you can come forward. Seeing no one wants to speak, I'll close our little public hearing, and I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So moved.
Have a motion from Mr. Honeycutt, and a second from Ms. McGriff. Any discussion? I think we're ready to vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Go down to 8I, public hearing and first reading of ordinance 2020-1682 regarding rezoning property owned by Taylor's Grove Baptist Church from INS to GB. Applicant, no, wait a minute. Yeah. Applicant Whitehall Development Group, LLC. Mr. Burhans?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. As referenced, this is a proposed rezoning of a single property, approximately 7 acres in size, from the institutional district to the proposed general business district. It is located near the intersection of US 521 and Shiloh Unity, approximately 1,000 feet southward, again on the western side of 521. And the applicant is Whitehall Development Group, LLC, the applicant of the prior rezoning case that you just heard as well. So just the next slide will give you a picture of the location and the surrounding map. Again, the site is outlined in the blue, and it has institutional or the orange colored zoning. And you can see that it is adjacent to a general business zoned property. Okay, just help you orient from photos. The left photo is looking east across 521 from the subject property. The right photo is looking south along 521. The next photo on the left is along 521 looking north, and the right photo is looking west at the subject property. Okay, the Planning Commission reviewed this also at their July meeting, and there were no citizen comments at the meeting. Planning Commission did find it consistent. The proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And the general discussion was largely just of the surrounding zoning and the nature of the intended use, which again is for a residential care facility. Where in the Planning Commission ultimately voted unanimously to recommend approval of the proposed rezoning to general business. I'll certainly make myself available for any questions that you have.
Mr. Chair, I've got a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Monson.
That's was that where the parsonage was for the church? Is that where this property is at?
No, I'm not aware that was the parsonage.
It was right across the road from the church. Is that?
That's where the ball field used to be,
Where the
across
ball
the street.
field's at. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Any more questions?
You said this was healthcare also?
Yes, sir. So again, this facility, the proposed use is a residential care facility. So again, a place where senior citizens would live and have some of their daily needs met through the facility.
Any more questions? All right, thank you. We have a public hearing on this one too.
Mr. Chairman, would note for the record, nobody signed up for the public hearing. And also, while y'all are here, I want to certainly thank Rox for coming up with the idea. You notice we're doing the public hearings on first reading now.
Okay.
So all these that you voted on 7-0 will sail through on consent for second and third.
So we did have one sign up.
No, sir, nobody signed up.
Okay. As always, I will give the opportunity if anyone wants to speak. Seeing no one wants to speak, we will close the public hearing, and I'm looking for a motion to bring this matter to the floor.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. McGriff.
Second.
Second from Mr. Graham. Any discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. First reading of ordinance 2020-1682. Let's go down to 8J, first reading of ordinance 2020-1683 regarding approval of the extension of the investment period for Project Pumpkin. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Carnes, second from Mr. Blackman. Mr. Gilbert.
With this being the third time that I'm up here, this is why we're not having an executive session tonight. So this is Project Pumpkin, and actually it's more than just an extension, as you know, of their investment period. That's what it's listed as, but there's a lot more to this ordinance and agreement that you have tonight. And since the press release is going to be coming out tomorrow, we can actually use the name of the project, which is Silgan Containers. So this is the expansion of Silgan Containers on Camp Creek Road. We've been working with the company on this project since July of last year, and they are looking to construct a 62,000 square foot addition to their building, as you know, and have met with John Wilbert, who is the plant manager there. They're a manufacturer of metal cans for industries, especially the food industry and the pet industry as well. This expansion will result in a capital investment of about $9.7 million and 16 new jobs over the next 5 years. They have a current fee in lieu of tax agreement with Lancaster County. That was for 20 years. It has a 6% assessment on the property and all new investments at the facility. It doesn't include the existing building, but it includes the equipment that they invested over the last 5 years. It has a fixed millage rate of 282.4 mills. That 5-year period came to an end at the end of last year on December 31st of 2019. So with this project, what we are looking to do and ask for council to support is the extension of that 5-year investment period so that this $9.7 million investment will fall under that. They also have asked that the fee agreement be extended an additional 10 years. We have always customarily, with projects, when they have met their commitment in the agreement and have come in and asked for an additional 10 years, which is allowed by state tax law, we have honored that and done that because they have performed in the way they said they would. Silgan Containers has done that with the investment that was promised from the original agreement. But the one thing that we did ask for, which we have done recently also, is to adjust that millage rate somewhat for those last 10 years. So the current millage rate of 282.4 mills would be adjusted to a millage rate of either 428.85 mills, or the lower, if the millage rate at the time is lower, it would be the lower rate. But it would be one of those two. So it won't stay locked in at 282.4 mills after year 20. The other incentive that we're asking for is because they're an existing industry and we count half of the current jobs and we take a look at new jobs, would be an SSRC that they're eligible for. So there are two parts to this SSRC of 58% that would go against the fee payments for this part of the project. So keep in mind the 58% SSRC does not apply to the SSRC that they have today. They had a 50% SSRC. This tax bill that comes out in 2020 is the last year for that 50% SRC. So the 58% SSRC that we're talking about only applies to new investments made after this year. I'm sorry, applies to investments made this year and then the next 4 years. There's a couple conditions with that 58% SSRC. So in years 1 through 3 of this, they have to maintain 54 full-time jobs at the facility to be able to get that benefit. If they fall below the 54, they're not getting the SSRC that year. Then in years 4 through 7, they have to have 70 full-time jobs at the facility, which is 16 new. Those jobs, though, will be prorated to 16. So if they hit all 16, they get 100% of that credit, so they get the full 58%. If they fall short of that, and it's 57 jobs, they're going to get whatever percentage those 3 jobs are of the 16 times the 58%. It's what we always do. As you know, we've done this on all the deals the last several years. So it's a standard way that we do the incentives. Now, if they fall below the 54 jobs in years 4 through 7, they're not getting the credit in any of those years. But I think with this company and what they've done, they're going to hit those numbers. They've been a fantastic addition to our manufacturing community here. This project will ensure that they will be here for many years to come, that they will now become this is not their headquarters, they're based out in California, but now this becomes a very desirable location for corporate to invest in additional lines, and as they get work around the southeast, that work can be placed in this facility. So we're very excited about what this means for Lancaster and Lancaster County, and be happy to take any questions you have.
Mr. Guy, I think this project involves a 60,000 plus square foot expansion to an existing facility.
Yes, sir.
And we will have a press release tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just a comment for Mr. Gilbert. I thought that bringing those folks before this council was very impressive. We got to meet the people who run the plant. He told us all about his facility, and I thought that was first class, and I appreciate you doing that, Jamie.
You're welcome, sir.
Anything else, Mr. Gilbert? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion? We have a motion from Mr. Carnes, second from Mr. Blackman. First reading of ordinance 2020-1683. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. 8K, first reading of ordinance 2020-1684 regarding amending the code of ordinances related to rehabilitated historic low and moderate income properties. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Mr. Carnes, second from Ms. McGriff. Ms. Davis?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. So this is actually almost an amendment to a prior ordinance that was adopted in April of last year, but because of the changes that were made, it was major enough that we're running it back through as an ordinance. So a little background, in 1992, South Carolina enacted the Bailey Bill, which allows local governments to offer a special assessment to specific historic and low-income properties. In 2004, the state increased the maximum abatement period from 10 years to 20 years. Later on, we'll see a couple of different local governments that had adopted this, and that's the difference in the times you see there is when they adopted the ordinances. 2019, April of 2019, Lancaster County adopted our own version of the Bailey Bill. This is just a number of revisions, including some minor errors and to clarify the process a bit. prior process kind of took you in a circle. There was no way to finish the loop. So I gave you all some handouts that have the full flow charts of the process for each, but as a kind of brief overview, for historic properties, there's a minimum of 20% of the assessed value has to be spent on the specific expenses for the property. I think those include like roofs and interior work and things like that, but they have to be maintaining the historic integrity of the property. Low income is a little more wide range. You can include electrical work and additions and things like that that you can't include for historic properties. Right now, because of the situation at the county level, the South Carolina Department of Archives and History is going to be doing our preliminary certifications and the review process for us for these, just to make sure we're having everything reviewed the way it needs to be. Any major changes that are made during the process that were not included in the original approval for the Department of Archives and History would have to be re-reviewed. Staff will confirm at the end that the minimum expenditures have been met, and we'll send a letter to all of the assessor, auditor, treasurer to notify them of everything.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Any questions, comments?
Got
got more.
She got another section.
I've got more.
Oh, okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So similar for low to moderate income, except for you're required by the state code that was written to have a minimum of 100% of the assessed value for low income properties. Sherry? There we go. There's a couple of examples that are currently in process. Low income on the left side is a project in the city of Greenville right now that's under works. They're taking low income property and adding some additions, and it's going to stay low income all the way through, but they're just making it a little nicer for the downtown area. There's, on the right is a project in the city of Columbia that's one of the historic properties that's been rehabilitated, just to give you guys a little picture of what could come along. When this went to admin committee, one of the questions was, what are other counties doing? Here's a kind of brief overview. Richland County and the city of Columbia, who have the kind of biggest successes, they've had over 140 Baileyville properties go through, are both 20-year special assessment periods, but they're only using the historic side. Greenville County, 10-year special assessment. That again, they adopted the ordinance early on and just never went back and updated to the 20-year. You're not required to do 20 years. You can do 10 years if you want, but they stayed with 10 years. The city of Greenville does 20 years, but only the low income side. I think Lancaster is interesting in that we've got low income and historic, and we can use both of them fairly well. A lot of times you'll see, like the city of Beaufort is just using historic, or Richland County is just using historic. We can use both, and we've got places that we can use both. Right now, as written, this will be a 20-year special assessment period. It'll hold the tax value of the property at the previous, or the pre-rehabilitation tax value. So the benefit to the property owner to rehabilitate these properties is that they get to hold that lower tax value for 20 years or 10 years, depending on what you go through. Both the city of Lancaster and the town of Kershaw have plans to adopt this ordinance after the county does their revisions so that we can be kind of jointly going through all this. Any questions?
Go ahead, Ms.
That was, my question was, where was the city on this Bailey bill? And the next question is, how often do we use this, and have we used it pretty much in historical buildings? I know we added low income areas, but have we used it with the historical parts of the county?
We haven't had any Bailey bill applications come through since we adopted this in April of last year. Like I said, the process was kind of circular. There wasn't a way to get through it, but we have had interest from some properties in the city of Lancaster in using this, which is on a historic property, or a number of historic properties. And I've actually spoken to a property owner in Kershaw, in the town of Kershaw, that's interested as well in a historic property.
Well, I have a historic property, so I'm eligible for this if I let it get run down and have to rehabilitate it.
About to say, yours is in pretty good shape, so I don't think you need it yet.
I would like to get the tax relief.
You can rework the barn in the back, Terry.
I do have a big barn.
Yeah.
I think you ought to put some low housing ink up there. We need some up that way.
I'll be interested to know when someone applies for that, affordable low and moderate. So just kind of keep us informed.
I'll keep you updated. Yes, ma'am.
I haven't heard anybody talk about it, so.
I think once the word gets out that it's something that can be used, we may see more. I think it's just kind of been quiet lately. Yes, ma'am.
Ashley, you don't remember, but I do, because you weren't in this world then, when Lancaster City was a bustling little community, a town that had 5 and 10 cent stores all over, hardware stores, drug stores, theaters downtown. And now most what we got is boarded up. To me, that's a shame. And hopefully, whatever can be done, that we do something about bringing our city back. It can be done. You see places like York, Clover, they've done it. And they've done it with shops. Next thing you know, you have restaurants. So whatever you're doing, I hope you have wonderful success, because I'd love to see it again.
For those who do not know, Ashley has a passion for this. That is, her degree is in historical preservation, so this is a thing that she's been after for a little while.
It is indeed.
Thank you. Any more discussion? I think we're ready to vote. Have a motion to approve first reading of ordinance 2020-1684. All in favor, raise your right hand. And unanimous approval. Go down to 8I, first reading of ordinance 2020-1677 regarding amending the Lancaster County Procurement Code. Do I have a motion? 8L, I'm sorry. I need some better glasses. All right,
Motion to approve.
Second.
Do I have a motion?
I did. He seconded.
Who made it? Mr. Blackman, then Mr. Carnes. Having a senior moment. All right, Ms. McDaniel, Ms. Alexander.
This is a proposal to amend the current procurement code. The biggest changes we've made were to add construction methods. We added a definition section for clarification. We made some minor changes to more mirror the state code. And we also added cooperative purchasing and things like reverse auction that we're not doing now, but we would like to look at doing in the future. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, will this speed up progress on some of the projects we've had going on, seems like for years?
We hope.
I'll give you an example, the animal shelter, forever. EMS headquarters, forever. And hopefully, whatever we do will speed up what we're trying to get done in this county, because it has been a bummer thus far, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Honeycutt, I think we're gonna test our next project. We'll be tested with the next project, whatever that is, right? At some point.
Well, I think now they're getting ready to do the DSS project. This will not have gone through, I think, by then. The next big one is probably going to be the EMS headquarters or the rec ball fields. But there's not a whole lot of
changes, I think, that are gonna affect those, because they're already further along.
What can we do? What can we do to help speed up some of these projects that we've had going on that continue to linger and linger on, and there's no reason for it, in my opinion?
Well, most of that is before it gets to the procurement process.
Uh-huh.
Once it gets to the procurement process and we get it in our hands, we can send it, we can advertise it and then send it on its way. But it's got to get to this point before that process can begin. So I can't answer that question because that's something that happens before it gets to us.
Will this help us get more competitive bids?
We hope. That is one of
That'd be the main goal, I would think.
Yes, that is a big hope. It also, we redid some wording to allow for the online bidding process. We're also looking at an online evaluation process that will speed all of that up and hopefully get more competitive bids. This has been reviewed by Mr. Willis, Ms. Alexander, Ms. Thompson, Mr. Blackman sat down with us for quite a while.
A couple hours.
And Mr. DeBose has also gone over it.
You talked about the DSS building and the modifications that we're gonna do there. Where do we stand? And Steve, has the state come up with the money that they are supposed to come up with to help on that project?
We're moving forward with the community development block grant portion, which is mostly building envelope. The state, with the budget and everything, they have not come up with any money. Given what they're facing, I'm not sure they're gonna come up with it this year. I think, at this point, though, talking to folks at DSS, they're happy just to have more office space and space to spread out. But, we'll certainly work with them, and we can do that at whichever point as the state comes up with the money for other interior renovations.
I thought they were obligated for like 65% of whatever we spend, the county spends. What is the percentage of what we spend?
65 or something. I think it's around 62, but they've
kind of reneged on that a little bit.
And said that they were not sure, that they were checking to see whether they're gonna be able to do that.
The state budget's in a world of hurt, and they're not sure they're gonna be able to come up with that. Some of that was federal funding, and the feds also are cutting back.
Steve, have, health department completely moved out now?
Yes, ma'am. And Kathy, you want to just brief them real quickly on the health department? They're in and operating.
The health department has been in the Barnett building since the 13th of March, I believe, and they, of course, for a while they were closed because of COVID, but they've opened back up now. I don't think they're open to full capacity. I think they're just taking appointments, but they are open and operational in the Barnett building.
So in the meanwhile, because they're clear from the DSS building, is DSS moving over into their
Now that, I don't know. Kelvin is handling that project, so I don't know where. I don't know if the original plan, and Allison, are they still talking about waiting to move in until the area is renovated? They were gonna wait until the area where DHEC is renovated and then move over and then renovate the area they're in now. Kind of just switch everybody around.
Ms. Alexander will have an update on our projects here in a few minutes, so any questions related to them, we'll just hold off a few minutes. She'll be glad to answer them.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a side note. Ms. Alexander and Ms. McDaniel spent a couple hours with me as we went over this together page by page, and we don't throw a lot of compliments around sometimes when we should, but I'd really like to compliment Kathy McDaniel for the great job she did in leading up to that review period. She and Ms. Alexander did a fantastic job putting all this together.
They met with you 2 hours?
They sure did. They put up with me for 2 hours.
Yeah, y'all need to be congratulated.
Yes,
everybody has a cross to bear, Charlene.
Thank you.
We appreciate the work y'all did on this. Okay, any more questions, discussion? Thank you. We ready to vote? All in in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. First reading of ordinance 2020-1677. All right, now, so this will be 8M. This is third reading of ordinance 2020-1675 regarding placing the question of amending the Lancaster County form of government on the November ballot. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. McGriff, second from Mr. Blackman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. I move to amend the ordinance in the form of the proposed amended ordinance included in the agenda package. The proposed amended ordinance modifies the ordinance body and the referendum question to make it clear that if the council manager form of government is approved by the electorate, the positions of auditor and treasurer can be either appointed or elected positions at the discretion of county council.
All right, we have an amendment from Mr. Carnes. I have a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. McGriff. Who has got this one?
Mr. Chairman, I've got that one. I think Councilman Carnes has covered everything. I don't have anything to add.
All right, is there any questions for Mr. Willis? Thank you. Okay, so this is 8M. We have an amendment. I think we're ready to vote on it. All in favor of the amendment, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. And we're ready to vote on ordinance 2020-1675 as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval. Let's move to 9A, pending projects update for new construction and major renovation projects. Ms. Alexander?
Yes, sir. The full report's in the council packet. I'm happy to answer questions. I do want to point out just a few items. The first is regarding EMS 49. The architect, the project architect, engineer, and the contractor have been working with county staff on addressing the stormwater issue in the water at the bays at EMS 49. And the engineer is now working on a design for a trench drain for review and approval. So that process is underway. We expect to have the design back from the engineer within the next 2 weeks. So this will be moving as quickly as we can. The contractor is ready to do the work and step away from the project when it's complete. After the last council meeting, Councilman Blackman participated in a virtual meeting with the designers for the Heath Springs Soccer Complex, and we walked through the parking requirements, actually the entire project. If anyone else would like to do that for any of the projects, we're happy to extend that offer as well. And finally, if you would like to tour the animal shelter over the next few weeks, please just let us know. We can set up a time. If your time allows, it would be great to go visit the current animal shelter so you can really get reminded of where we're at today and then look at the new building and where they're going to be moving as soon as the kennel doors are manufactured and installed. We've had no other significant project updates or schedule changes from last month's report, whether due to COVID or any other incidents.
Ms. McGriff, do you have anything else?
Yes.
We asked a question about the DSS building.
Yeah, so the architectural selection was made on July 24th, and so the design's underway. They've already been to the building, and they're working on the project design. Under the grant requirements, we have until November 2021. That's our deadline for completion. So we expect work will be underway, late fall, early winter of this year, and be complete well before the end of the grant deadline.
I have another question about the animal shelter. If I can, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Someone called and asked me about the wood fence that's up. I know we got a black metal gate that opens up.
Correct.
And then the wood fence. They want to know, why did we install the wood fence and not the metal fence? I have no idea, unless we ran out of funds for the metal gate. But he was so upset that we did not have a metal gate all the way around that animal shelter. Can you answer? I said it had to be a design.
Yeah, I can go back in. I wasn't part of the wasn't here when the design was done, but I can certainly go back and find out the specifics of why that choice was made. Be happy to report that back.
Allison, the EMS headquarters, the architectural plans have been resubmitted for review. Resubmitted to who?
They've been submitted to the building department for building plan approval, so. We have to go through our same review process as any other commercial building in the county.
So did Mr. Blackman get his question answered about the location of the parking lot?
Oh, yeah, and the number of spaces too. Actually, we had a great discussion with the designers, and even before that, Mr. Gilbert, our Economic Development Director, and I had a conversation, and he was so kind as to look up a park in Georgia for me to sort of help my fears of not having enough parking. So I appreciated that help from Mr. Gilbert and from staff and from the design people. So I think we're about as adequate as we can get with parking at that location, and I appreciate everybody's input.
You got all kind of compliments tonight, don't you?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
All right, thank you, Ms.
He's a politician.
Okay, let's move down to 9B. We got appointments to various boards and commissions. We'll take a motion on all these.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion from Ms. McGriff, second from Mr. Honeycutt. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous approval of Mr. Madden, Ms. Neely, and Mr. Ferguson. We appreciate you serving our county. Approval of an organizational chart. Ms. Alexander.
In August of last year, so August 2019, council approved an update to the organization chart, and we require another update to reflect some of the changes made by council to some of the boards and commissions and within the divisions. The full list is in your council packet, and I would like to note that after the agenda was published, we discovered a section was inadvertently left off the org chart. So you've got a replacement copy that includes the clerk to council, the county attorney, economic development, and the deputy clerk to council. Those were not omitted intentionally. I do understand there may be some concerns about the organization chart and some individual positions, and so I would just like to request if council would like to discuss individuals that we do so in an executive session at a future meeting if you desire. I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions, discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not satisfied with this organizational chart at all. I think we as a council need to sit down and talk about this, because there's questions that I have and questions other members of this council has that we need to talk about.
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Whether we want to do it next meeting, executive session, it does not matter, or have a special meeting, I don't care. But I think we need to discuss this.
Oh, I did have one question, and I do, Mr. Honeycutt, agree with you, because I was sort of puzzled about why certain places were put there. Even though we had discussions about it, I think we need to kind of justify the categories. But now, are all these positions at the top in purple, do they have individual directors, or have we hired all of those positions?
No, ma'am, for all of those positions, so just going, you're referencing the division director. So our development services division, the director is currently also serving as planning director. I serve as the division director for general services division. The CFO, Veronica Thompson, is the financial services division director. Jeff Cato is the public services division director and public works director. There is no public safety division director. That capacity is filled by Steve Willis. And then Jeff Hammond, as clerk of court, serves as the judicial services division director.
And I think that's some information we need to know, because I'm thinking in my head who's doing what, and some of them are combined, even though they're categorized differently, right? I mean, you serve in two capacities, right?
Yes, ma'am. There's no separate position listed underneath the division name, so.
I think we can do a little more discussion and clarification.
I agree. I agree. We should not approve something that we don't know why things take place and why it's happening the way it is. We need to know some of these things.
Yeah.
I've been involved with organizational charts all my working life, and we'd like to explain a little better, and this has been explained here.
Any individual, I guess, position or employee, whatever needs to be discussed, is all that need to be discussed in executive session, or what needs to be discussed in public?
If we're going to discuss an individual in, potential salary adjustments, things of that nature, that would be executive session. If we're simply going to discuss the organizational chart and where a department may fit with another department, I defer to the attorney. I do not believe that's going to qualify for executive session.
I mean, I would want to research it a little further, but it doesn't fit the classic definition of an employment matter, which is excluded or allowed for executive session under FOIA.
What if we decide that we want to discuss that in reference to this organizational chart? We may want to discuss salary pertaining to an individual. Would that not qualify for executive session?
I think if you're talking about a specific employee's salary and employment status, that could qualify for an executive session under FOIA. But you'd have to put notice out that that is what you would want to be discussing.
And it would be for that one, but we couldn't, if we're back there discussing that one, we couldn't vary off topic.
But what I'm saying, if that comes up, we'll have to go into executive session.
Yes, ma'am.
Will that have to be, place notice on that, attorney?
Yes. If you want to discuss an employment matter specific to an individual, that would need to be noticed properly under FOIA that you want to discuss in an executive session.
It may come up and it may not, but I think we may better be safe to say.
We can always have it on the agenda, and if it's not needed, it just doesn't happen.
Do we have to name a specific person? Or can you say you just got matters that due to
right, for instance,
personnel?
Right, you could say, let's say you had two individuals you wanted to discuss, you could put on your agenda for executive session 2 employment matters. You don't have to, the whole purpose of that is to protect the privacy of those individuals, so you don't have to name them specifically in the agenda.
And again, I would stress, I think it's where we start getting into some compensation. If we're just discussing assignments, I don't believe that's going to qualify for executive session.
Well, what I'd like to see us do is to go into executive session next meeting early, before we get to that part of the agenda to discuss the moving of the things, because I do think we probably need to talk about employment matters of some of the people that are in the hierarchy. Not that I have a problem with the people, just where they are, what are we paying them, what are we classifying them as, and things of that nature. So I would think we could take care of those items first before we go into talking about the.
I would note that all the folks in the hierarchy, they're making over $50,000 a year. Their salaries are public record.
Chair, I've got some questions.
I'm not particularly interested in whether or not we're going to executive session. I'm interested in discussing what some of us have talked about. And it can be an open session as far as I'm concerned, because my mind's not going to change one way or another. Were we sitting in there, 7 of us, or we're out here talking to the public about it? There's concerns of mine and others on this panel up here that we need to talk about it.
Mr. Willis or Daniel, I agree that any discussions, we can name a position, but as a council, we don't need to be naming employee names. Is that correct?
I would say it's wise to try to avoid calling out someone's name and discussing them in open forum. They would have a right to be here to respond to that too. You do get into some First Amendment issues when you start stepping into those particular waters. Not knowing what it was that would need to be discussed, it's kind of hard to offer y'all any sort of legal opinion. I can tell you, generally speaking, specific employment matters are best handled through a properly noticed executive session, which takes it properly outside the view of FOIA. If it's just an organizational chart and talking about a position name or a position head, that needs to be discussed in open session.
I feel confident if we have the executive session, and you know, if something happens, we start to stray off topic, you know, our attorney's going to say, "Whoa, time out! This you cannot talk about this in the back. You've got to talk about this in public."
Chair, I've got some questions.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mosteller.
I'm not going to tiptoe around this, what I've got to say. This has been on my heart for a while. Mr. Attorney, if I say something that I shouldn't be saying, it should have been in executive session, you let me know. But I agree with all these considerations that's on this chart, not the organizational chart, but this other chart of adding these different things. But combining the zoning and planning, I do have an issue with. This department, zoning department, has been doing a great job. It is by far heads up 10 times better than it was a couple years ago. You can call down there with a concern and they're on top of it and get the job done. That's taken a lot off us. All of us gets calls from people with trash or neighbors doing this or that, and we can call and this, our director of the zoning, I ain't call names, does a great job, and her officer that goes out and enforces it. So that being said, I just got a problem with basically it would be a demotion for her because she's a department head now. If she goes in and merges with another department, she's not going to be, to me, I put myself in her shoes, or his shoes, and how I would feel if that happened to me, and it would bother me. I mean, y'all can say all you want to that you don't think it's bothering this person, but I'm telling you, it's wrong. You put yourself in their shoes, you work your way up, and then you get knocked back down. It's not a good thing. Also, I'm not a big fan of this organizational chart. I haven't been from the start. We still have a good department heads in all four of our developmental services. We had a great planning director, and we moved him to development service director. Now, we will be filling that position at a later date. Okay? I think we should use employees we have, the resources that we have now. Let our development service director continue as our planning director, and let our deputy administrator oversee these four departments and save a large salary for the county. This should not be a big task overseeing these four departments. We've got four good people over those departments. I don't know why it would be a big task to them to be under this organizational chart, because I don't think it would be a lot to keep these people in line. They do their job, and I think us saving the county a salary would be a plus. So I just think we need to use the resources we got, and that's my spiel on this.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman.
Go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
Did this go through the administration committee before it came to council?
That was gonna be my comment, before. We briefly discussed it, but as I remember, Alan, we made some
I don't think Alan was there.
I was absent that admin meeting.
Did we make some recommendations, Steve?
I don't think so.
There was no discussion at the admin committee.
Okay. I was thinking, because if we had seen this, we would definitely,
We saw it, but I don't think we had many comments on it.
yeah, we would've said something. So, and you said it didn't come before our committee.
Yeah, it came before us.
Well, we must've been asleep that day.
Mr. Chairman, if
Go
I
ahead,
could,
Mr.
we certainly bring it back to admin, but just would note for council, what happened on the chart was not changing from what we've been working towards for some time, and that is having development services all working together. And as some of y'all longtime people know, in the past, we had buildings that didn't get along with planning, that didn't get along with zoning. We didn't have stormwater back then. And we've been trying purposely to move everything to where it's development services. Building, zoning, planning work hand in hand to make things better for ultimately the customers, which is the folks that are out there building. And I can tell you, we've gotten a lot of praise over the changes we've done over the last year or so.
I can tell you that's the department I deal with, and the changes, it's a lot more business friendly. With the evolved software in the past, talked to engineers and people that have submitted stuff, griping, stuff wouldn't get reviewed. But with what we've got now, they when it's put in a system, they have so many days they have to comment on it. So it's made the whole from a small builder. 7 o'clock this morning, I go online and schedule an inspection for tomorrow morning. It's submitted my plans for the first time online, and it's a big improvement.
And we can certainly bring this back to admin. I just want to stress that what you're seeing on here, it looks different than the org chart, but there's not really any significant change.
I think the big question is combining two departments, and I think that's
we can certainly talk about that.
This council is looking at discussion. Am I correct?
I think, Mr. Chair, it needs to go back to the admin and get any recommendation from any council member as to what we need to look at before we send it back to full council. Comments on this and what they agree with and don't agree with, and let's work within that committee to look at those and then send it back to full council.
Mr. Chair, I've got one more comment.
Go ahead, Mr.
Steve, you oversee the public safety division of this chart.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What I'm asking is let our deputy administrator oversee the development services and give her a chart, part of the chart, and save a salary.
She's already doing administrative services.
I understand you are too. But what I'm saying is everybody needs a position on this chart. You got one, everybody else has got one, but I think we could save a salary by letting an existing employee.
If we want to save salaries, I'd recommend we just don't fill a planning director. I think, having our development services director that's over all those departments has paid great dividends.
That's fine, if ROTS can do both.
Yes, we're not
I'm
actively
sorry,
advertising the planning director position. ROTS is fulfilling both.
That's fine.
We recognize it's tight budget time.
I understand, but I know in the future that's going to be coming back to us.
As workload increases,
y'all going to be filling
yes, sir,
that
probably
position.
will.
I understand, but
we have to come to y'all for the budget.
The organizational chart is not filled out right. And that's my opinion.
Is there a desire to send this back?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we send this back to the admin committee for their review and comments.
Have a motion for Mr. Carnes.
Second.
Have a second for Mr. Graham. Any discussion?
I do want to say, before it comes back to the admin committee, please send in your comments and your suggestions so we'll have something to refer to before we bring it back to full council.
Get those to Ms. McGriff.
You really got yours.
Okay. Any more discussion? I think we're ready to vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. Have unanimous approval. Thank y'all. Consideration for, we didn't already did that.
We done that one.
All right, Mr. Willis, anything on any held, recommitted, or deferred items?
Nothing.
Okay, so do I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss
Chairman,
a contraction?
we've missed these appointments here.
What's that?
We've missed these appointments to the various boards and commissions.
No, we didn't.
Huh?
I got them.
When did
We
we do
got
that?
'em.
There was no executive session.
Got one with the lawyer.
Sleeping.
Jamie.
We got 'em.
Jamie's has been.
Can't do it. Do I have a motion to go in executive session?
Motion to go in executive session.
Second.
To discuss contractual matter. Have a motion from Mr. Graham, second from Mr. Carnes. Is that correct? All in favor, raise your right hand. We have unanimous agreement. We are in
I'll stick them on his desk.
Yeah.
Could I have a motion to come out of executive session? Have a motion for Mr. McGriff to come out of executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Honeycutt. All in favor, raise your right hand. We're now out of executive session.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, during executive session, council undertook a briefing on one contractual matter. No votes were taken and no decisions were made.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, before I make that motion, I'd like to tell you guys that I'll be seeing a nerve and spine specialist on the 20th. I am having some problems with my neck and my head, and this is something that's gotten me very concerned, and I'd appreciate a prayer anytime you think about me, because I am concerned about this, and being an old man, I guess I ought to be concerned. But anyhow, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion for Mr. Honeycutt. Do I have a second? I have a second for Mr. Cram. And Mr. Honeycutt, I think everyone in this council will keep you in our thoughts and prayers.
Thank you. Thank you very
hope
much.
that they can get
so
your
much.
neck straightened out.
Yeah.
All right, we got a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous